It is time for the Royal Rumble Countdown, our weekly countdown of the top 10 greatest championship matches in Royal Rumble history. We are doing one match per week leading up to the 2019 Royal Rumble, building up to the number one match in the countdown. We're now three matches in. We are up to number 7 this week. And match number 7 of 10 comes from the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas. Now, there have been 2 Royal Rumble events at the Alamodome, one in 1997 and the other one 20 years later, which is where this match took place. John Cena challenging AJ Styles for the WWE Championship from Royal Rumble 2017. When I think of their 3 big matches, from the first one they had at Money in the Bank back in 2016, to the rematch at SummerSlam that year, to this one here, this match ranks, I think, just below their SummerSlam match, at least for me. I was happy to be there for the SummerSlam match at the Barclays Center to see that one live. I will remember the reaction inside the building to that 3 count for a very long time. But this match here at the Rumble was only a shade, I would say, below that one. This was an excellent back and forth battle, with Cena claiming his 16th World Championship, tying the WWE record of 16 that's occupied by Ric Flair. It did feel a bit like their greatest hits at some points during this match, but I mean, that's natural, I guess, coming off their 2 previous matches. There was a lot of kicking out of finishers, and that's become a staple of, I don't want to say all, but like a lot of WWE main events these days. Probably just a lot of wrestling matches these days. That doesn't make it a bad match, though. You can have a match where guys are kicking out of finishers left and right, and it's still an excellent match. It's one of the reasons why I think Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. Not because they were kicking out of each other's finishers, but they told a great story. There was a lot of other things they did during that match. So that does not make it a bad match. I sometimes see people throw that out there. Well, it's overrated. It's really not that good. They were just kicking out of moves. Oh, well, gee, wrestlers kicking out of moves in a match. Yeah, what a horrible thing that must be. So I don't want to hear that as a criticism of the match as though the match isn't any good. I think it's valid to use as a minor critique, but to say the match isn't good because of that just doesn't wash. It got to the point where I didn't think that we would see AJ Styles in a WWE ring. At the time, he was almost 40. He found life in New Japan after leaving TNA. He was in TNA for so many years. WWE at the time was not exactly welcoming of new TNA talent for whatever reason. And, I figured, look, if he ever made the deal, it would be for NXT. And my only hope was that they wouldn't make him change his name. Never did I think that he would come in and have the kind of year that he ended up having. He got the big surprise debut that year in the Royal Rumble match, a match with Chris Jericho at WrestleMania that he lost, but still not a bad first opponent to have at WrestleMania. But then he pinned Jericho the next night on television in that fatal 4-way they did to become the number 1 contender for the WWE title. And out of it, look, this guy's in the company barely 2 months, and he's challenging their new crown prince, Roman Reigns, in 2 consecutive pay-per-view main events for the top title in the entire company. That's how much they trusted him. They trusted him to go in there and help make Roman look like $1 million, which he did. And I'm not trying to take away from Roman. He held up his end, and I thought that the 2 of them together put on a couple of excellent matches. But AJ, if you remember, he was bumping his ass off, especially in that second match. He was bumping his ass off for Roman and making this guy look like $1 million. So then when that was over, and he lost both of those matches, but when that was over, from Roman Reigns, from one top guy to the next, he jumped over to John Cena. And he beat John Cena in their very first match together at Money in the Bank. Had a little help from the club. But then he beat him again, beat him clean, at SummerSlam. Less than a month later, AJ Styles was WWE Champion. And a month after that, he pinned John Cena again in a triple threat match. That was the match that opened the No Mercy pay-per-view. They actually opened that pay-per-view with a triple threat WWE Championship match. I think it was AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, and John Cena. And they did that because there was a big presidential debate that night, and so they wanted to get the match in before the debate. But when I think of the greatest first years in WWE. Rookie years, as weird as it is to think of 40-year-old AJ Styles as a rookie, which only reminds me of that redneck rookie nickname that Vince McMahon gave him. But as far as first years go, AJ's got to be in the conversation for one of the best. Now, I would not, I don't know that I would put him ahead of Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't put him, I think Brock probably still takes the cake as far as having the best rookie year in WWE. Even Kurt Angle, I don't know that I would put AJ ahead of Kurt Angle necessarily, but he, I think, is up there in that category. He's in that stratosphere with those guys as far as best first years go in this company. I guess you could also take somebody like Kane. Kane would have to be in that conversation as well. But anyway, these two worked really well together. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of the chemistry and the dynamic between John Cena and CM Punk. And it reminds me of the John Cena CM Punk feud in this way. AJ was the big internet darling. He could do no wrong. TNA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, everybody sang the praises of AJ Styles and said he may be the greatest wrestler of all time. He was this big independent star everywhere he went. Even though he technically wasn't on the indies for a number of years, that's how he was perceived. And he did make a name for himself on the indies before ever setting foot in TNA or in New Japan. He was the antithesis of John Cena, who was not a favorite of those fans, and who did not first go out and make a name for himself wrestling on indie shows.
He couldn't have made it in the indies.
How come?
Because he can't hang with guys like me. That's why. I know everything there is about performing in a ring. You name every style, I can get out there and I can do it. John Cena, he cannot. John Cena's strong. That's what he has going on. He's got a great mind for that ring, but there's more to it than that. And John Cena went in the last 2 seconds in an independent ring.
Cena debuted at the end of '99. A year later, he was already having tryout matches for WWE, and then he got signed to a developmental deal. Funny enough, AJ was offered a developmental deal, and he turned it down because he didn't want to relocate his family. And I think his wife was going to college at the time. But as far as the match goes, this was just a tremendous match. Back and forth, very evenly matched. It was just it felt like a war between these two. Great heat, felt big time, especially with that big crowd. They had over 50,000 people in the building that night. We even got some very subtle, I felt, heel tendencies in this match from John Cena. There was a lariat spot in here where he turned AJ inside out. Just ran him over like a truck. And he had this look, John Cena did, on his face like he was about to crack. And I was well past the point of believing that they would ever turn him heel at that point after so many years of just not doing it. But he looked very, kind of like he did in the matches with Punk. You know, you go back and you watch that great match between Punk and Cena at Money in the Bank 2011. Cena's hitting it with AA after AA, and Punk's kicking out, and Cena's all frustrated. He goes up to the referee. He's all flustered. He was very frustrated here like that, very similar. At different points in the match, every time AJ would kick out, it was like he didn't know what he had to do to put this guy away. Even a super AA off the ropes, and AJ kicked out. AJ hit the phenomenal forearm, and he had a Styles clash himself, and each of those times John Cena kicked out. And it was on another AA attempt. Styles escaped. He had another Styles clash. Then he went to go on the apron for another forearm. But Cena caught him. He caught him with the AA. He rolled through, and he hit one more attitude adjustment, and he got the pin. And Mauro Ranallo was on the call. This is before he got bumped away from the SmackDown announce crew. He was on the call for this match. I thought he did a great job with it. I know some people aren't like huge Mauro fans. They think he's very loud and over the top, and he can be. He definitely can be at times. But I miss having an announcer. And I'm not saying this just to shit on Michael Cole or Tom Phillips, because we've seen from Michael Cole before, whether it was the Beast in the East special on the network many years ago, or when he called that UK tournament, or even the Mae Young Classic. I mean, Michael Cole has the ability, when he is allowed to be and wants to be a tremendous announcer. More often than not, he doesn't have the chance to be because he's playing by the rules in the script that are laid out in front of him by you-know-who. And so he does, I feel, get more flack than he probably should. And I miss the days where we had an announcer, a lead play-by-play guy, that people genuinely liked, and his passion when he's calling these matches, especially if the heel is doing something dastardly to the babyface, really good play-by-play announcer. Sometimes will show some bias, even though you technically shouldn't be, you should be impartial. But when you have that emotion that comes through the way it used to with a Jim Ross or, even a Michael Cole, when you allow it, you go back to the early days of Cole as an announcer, and we got to see that a little more often with him when somebody would do something heinous. I just got done watching The Rock and Mankind again, right? In that I Quit match at the Royal Rumble. It's a shame that JR was out, with his illness and couldn't call that match. But, Cole at the very end there was just going nuts, and he was saying The Rock makes me sick. He's a despicable person. I miss that kind of emotion. Morrow, I think right now in this company in NXT is the closest thing we have to kind of a Jim Ross-esque type like that. So I appreciate that. And I think that's something that is sorely missing from the main shows. One of the cool things about this match, and a lot of people may not pick up on this, is the fact that at no point, if you go back and watch this match, and I hope you guys are, I think part of the fun of doing this countdown is that as I go along here, people go back and they watch these matches over to see if they agree, if they disagree. And I'm only putting matches in this countdown that are worth your time. So it's definitely worth it to go back and watch these. But if you go back and watch this match, at no point during the entire match, all 20 minutes plus, did either man leave the ring. No rolling outside to take a breather. No suicide dives, tope suicida. No crashing through the announce table. No searching around for steel chairs and kendo sticks. And not that it's a requisite that having a good match, you shouldn't be doing any of those things. I'm just saying the fact that they did not go outside once. They did not need to rely on any of that stuff. They kept the focus in the ring, and they had a tremendous match. I didn't see or hear or read one person complain about the fact that, these guys didn't go outside and use weapons. They didn't do a big dive. They didn't do a big table spot. It wasn't necessary. They told the story in the ring, and they put on a clinic. That to me makes it even more impressive, because I think a lot of guys do rely on that stuff too often as a crutch. Whether it's their idea, whether the company tells them to do it, whatever it is, you do that stuff over and over and over in every single match, especially the dives. I'm so sick to death of those dives. I just got done watching Jay Lethal do like 9 or 10 straight dives at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view last night, which I thought was a really good show overall, but that just annoyed the crap out of me. He's doing these dives. They don't even look dangerous. I mean, they look dangerous to the person doing it. The person who's on the receiving end of it is just there to kind of break their fall and catch them. I'm like, what is the point of watching somebody do these dives like he's doing here over and over and over again? It just takes me out of the match. I specifically remember watching that match last night and thinking, this is incredibly stupid. But they didn't need to do any of that here in this match. And it did not take away from it one iota. Not one bit. Lil Nate, Charles Robinson, he was the referee for this match. I thought that was very appropriate. Although it would have been funny, I think, to see him hold up the count at the end there and help AJ win to preserve the record held by his idol, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Little Nate goes rogue. Could have been a fun storyline. But he and Cena, when the match was over and he was presenting the championship belt to Cena, they had some words. We couldn't hear what they were saying to each other, but you could read lips. And you could see John Cena mouth the words, "That's pretty fucking cool," when Robinson presented him with the title for the 16th time. But I was thinking about this. You know what is so screwed up about this? If you think back to what was happening at the beginning of 2017, storyline-wise, AJ Styles, 140 days as WWE Champion, drops the title to John Cena 3 months before WrestleMania 33. They could have probably extended this thing out to WrestleMania if they wanted to, and have Cena win title number 16 there. But what is so screwed up about this is that when WrestleMania finally did roll around, neither one of these two were involved in the WWE Championship match. AJ was shuffled off into a feud with Shane McMahon and had what I would say probably was the match of the night. I mean, I guess there was a tag team ladder match that was pretty good, but I would argue AJ and Shane probably had the match of the night. And it was the opening match at WrestleMania that year. And meanwhile, John Cena is in a tag team match. He's teaming with Nikki Bella against The Miz and Maurice. Now, I thought the build-up to that match and the skits with Miz and Maurice kind of masquerading around as Cena and Nikki were actually some of the most entertaining things they did in the build-up to that show. So the build-up was a lot of fun. The match itself, not so much. The match was kind of crappy. The aftermath of that match, in hindsight, pointless. But that's what those two guys in the middle of this great championship match here, 3 months before WrestleMania, come time for WrestleMania, and it's like they're just off doing completely different things. And the championship is contested in a match between Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. A match that was practically an afterthought on that show. Was it like third from the bottom, I think? Total afterthought, other than Randy Orton riding a giant sperm down to the ring, which apparently he wasn't thrilled about, and Bray using spooky projection effects during the match. What a pile of crap that match was. But I gotta say, to wrap this up here, with John Cena not being around much anymore, like he's about to come back for a live event run. He's not going to be back on television consistently, probably until we get closer to WrestleMania. And I think he's filming another movie. I think he's starting to film another movie up in Canada the week before the Royal Rumble, so who knows if he'll even be there. With Cena not being around much anymore, I kind of miss the guy. Never thought I'd sit here and say that, but yeah, I do. I kind of miss the guy. And maybe it's just that Raw has been so fatally boring. I just am more sentimental than I would otherwise be if the shows were actually fun to watch right now. If the shows were on fire right now, that might be a different story. The shows are on fire, but it's a dumpster fire. That's a very different kind of fire. But I actually kind of miss John Cena a little bit, being not on television every single week, but just him being around and some of the big matches that he's been in before, because I don't think he does get enough credit for these big pay-per-view matches that he has been in over the years. If you look back, and who knows, who's to say that this is the last one of his you're going to see here in this countdown. I'm not giving anything away. But he has had some tremendous matches, with a lot of different opponents, not just guys like Shawn Michaels and, Daniel Bryan and quote-unquote great wrestlers, but he has had great matches up and down, going back to 2005 with a lot of different guys. And because he was never looked at as being the best wrestler in the world or anything, I think he probably doesn't get enough credit for that.